Welcome to Profiles of Endurance. I'm Father Scott Vanderveer. One of the things that being a priest has taught me is that healing and addiction is the highest form of spiritual work that any of us can do in this life. When we come to terms with an addiction in our life, we not only have to change a behavior that has been robbing us of our potential, we also have to wrestle with the defects of character that we have that caused us to turn to that substance or behavior in the first place. A person who goes on the journey of healing from an addiction must face every insecurity that he or she has. And they must have the humility to join with others who share that condition in growing spiritually and learning how to accept the things in life that can never be changed, taking responsibility for all those things that can, and having the humility to seek the wisdom to know the difference. That's why my conversation with today's guest is so tender. Seth Mann is an active member of the parish of St. Mary's in Coxsackie, New York, and he is somebody who has made a huge contribution to his community. And so it may be surprising to many that such an incredibly generous and giving and talented person could also be dealing with such a difficult life journey. Seth's demons got the better of him at certain times in his life, but he, in this incredibly candid and generous conversation, shares with us how coming to terms with acceptance of the things he can't change has helped him to be the kind of person he, at an earlier time of his life, only dreamed he could ever be. Listen in as a person who has faced some of the hardest things life can place before us has come to terms with all of the ways God is at work through the healing of his addiction. I am here today with Seth Mann to talk about a form of endurance that is so important to so many people listening today and to the loved ones of those of us who are listening. So we'll begin, Seth, by talking about your early years. Where did you grow up and what was growing up like?
I grew up in a very small town in southern Vermont, Peru, Vermont. I was one of four children, the youngest. Early on, my mother wasn't around a lot because she was with my brother in New York City at the hospital. He passed of leukemia when he was 4. I was just a baby. I have no recollection of that. And my brother and sister are both 8 and 9 years older than I am. So they weren't really around. So I was my early recollection of growing up was with the nanny, because my father was unequipped and incapable of taking care of a child.
Would that cause you to say that you grew up in a sort of sad household?
I don't remember it being sad. I just remember it was what it was. Things got a little dicey as I got older. My mother and father were both heavy drinkers. My father was completely isolated from the family. He came out at mealtime and basically play golf, and the rest of the time he was in his study doing whatever he was doing, reading. My mother was around, but she was, she had her, things to do. So I was pretty much left to my own devices. And it wasn't bad. Things got a little rough because of my mother and father's heavy drinking. Things got a little violent. Not a little violent, very violent. And I kind of got drawn into that. But that was over very quickly.
About what age?
I'm thinking 9 or 10. And then my father was gone. Out of the picture. Completely.
Oh, he did. He left.
Well, I think he was asked to leave, but...
So your high school years, you're home with your mom. Your older siblings are out of the house.
Correct.
And so it's the two of you. What are those years like?
Well, high school years, I was in boarding school.
Ah.
So I was gone the whole school year.
When you hear somebody going to boarding school, it makes you think that maybe the family didn't have trouble with money. Is that true?
That's correct.
Your
Yeah.
family didn't have money problems.
No, not at all.
Did that make your mom feel lonely, sending her baby off to boarding school?
I don't know if it made her lonely or gave her an opportunity to live the life that she wanted to. There were plenty of beaux, if you will. There were plenty of boyfriends.
Wow. Wow. My goodness.
I had lots of uncles.
You did. All right, so tell me, boarding school. What's life like for a kid in boarding school?
It wasn't bad. Looking back on it, it wasn't bad. I remember freshman year was a little rough. The whole freshman, higher classes, that whole beat down, if you will. But I was a pretty good athlete, so I kind of transcended that because of my athletic ability. I was rebellious as hell the first two years. And there was one teacher that pulled me aside and said, "What are you doing? Why are you fighting everything? What are you doing?" And after that, a switch got thrown, and I became a very good student, honors, all the good stuff, and that was that.
How strict was boarding school? I can picture the dormitory life of a boarding school as being kind of wild when the lights go off, but how supervised was it?
Oh, very.
It was.
There were what we called masters or teachers that lived on every floor. They had their apartments, and then there was a prefect who was the student head. It was a senior student head of the floor. Lights out was 10 o'clock, and it was lights out. It was strict. And this was a parochial school, Episcopal parochial, local actually, kind of, Hoosac.
Oh, which we've heard of. A lot of local folks know about that.
Yeah, sure. So it was very structured.
Yeah.
Very structured, coat and tie, every day, had to cut your hair.
You had said that your parents were drinkers. When did you have your first drink?
11 or 12 was my first recollection of getting drunk.
Alone or with others?
I was at my sister's wedding. And I'd had some exposure to alcohol prior to that, but I don't remember ever going off the deep end. There were a lot of cocktail parties. It was a small town, but everybody knew each other, so there was a lot of, Friday and Saturday nights and lots of half-empty glasses. And everybody sleeping late except for me.
Was there a consequence to being drunk at that age at a wedding?
No, not that I remember.
Was drinking a big part of boarding school?
No.
It wasn't.
No.
Not allowed.
I actually did get suspended in my junior year for drinking.
Yeah. But that's how strictly it was taken.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
What happens after boarding school?
I took a year off. Went to Colorado with a girl. That ended badly. I ended up back in Vermont sometime in the middle of that winter, living with my uncle and my aunt, because my mother was in Europe. She had taken a year and went to Europe. And then after that, when my mother got back, I went north to Burlington, Vermont, where she was going to be living. And I went to college for 1 year. First thing I did when I got to college, literally, after I loaded the car and got into my dorm room, was went out and got a job working in a bar. So college didn't last.
Did not last.
No.
What would you describe those years of your life like? What was a priority for you during that time? What was your big priority in those years?
I just kind of went with the flow. I don't really remember having a priority. I kind of did, okay, this is what you're supposed to be doing, so this is what I'm going to do. Certainly, there was a lot of partying going on.
When was the first time that you wondered if your partying was a problem? Was there a point where
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Probably when I was 18 or 19. And then certainly right after my first marriage.
First marriage was
1981.
1981. How long did it last?
About 20, almost 20 years, 17 years.
17 years. And so during that marriage, you had a lot of ups and downs.
Yeah, it was. We'd been married less than a year when I quit drinking the first time.
Were you encouraged to quit drinking, or was that a decision you made on your own?
Well, it was probably a little of both. I remembered it was a Labor Day weekend, and I woke up Monday morning, and all my friends were mad at me, and I had no recollection why. And my sister was at my house, and she lived 2.5 hours away. And I was just like, okay, whatever. I'll just quit drinking. I'll just stop.
Wow. What had they told you had happened?
I don't think they ever did.
You just knew?
Yeah, whatever it was bad.
It was bad. So what did your spouse at that time, how did she ride the ups and downs of this?
Well, she was a heavy drinker as well.
She was.
Right, and we met in a bar. And she quit drinking too. We both did.
Yeah. How long did your first time quitting last?
15 years.
15 years! That had to be so remarkable. You must have felt, I've licked this problem.
Yep.
I've licked this problem.
Yeah.
What did you do with the urge to drink during those years?
I worked. I worked 7 days a week, 10, 12 hours a day.
Is it fair to call that workaholic?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I just transferred one to the other.
You transferred it to work.
Yeah.
And as long as you were busy, you weren't thinking about the other itch that wanted to be scratched.
Yeah. How
does 15 years end? What was the turning point of that?
Well, in that 15 years, I built a very successful company. Very successful. And I kind of took the company to the next level and had really kind of, made it as far as the industry that we were in. And decided that I was a different person. And I was able, I was the man. I was the guy that everybody called when they wanted something. And I closed on a very large deal and grabbed a bunch of, 3 or 4 of my friends who were customers as well, went out and to dinner, and when the waitress asked if anybody wanted something to drink, I said, absolutely, I'll take a Scotch neat, please.
A celebratory scotch?
Yeah.
Yeah. How did that night end?
Oh, we got buried. I'm assuming I got pretty drunk.
Don't quite remember.
Well, it's not that I remember because I got too drunk. I just, it was a long time ago. And,
sure.
It was a party. What is probably significant about that night is 1 year later, I had lost the company, was completely bankrupt. My first marriage was gone. And I was living in an apartment in Albany.
Oh, boy. That year, was the year completely filled with downturn?
Oh, yeah.
It was a year of... Was drinking a part of that whole year?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. So, when you got to that place, would you call that place a year later? Was that rock bottom? That's not the end of the story.
No. Was it a bottom? Certainly.
It was a bottom.
Certainly. Was it the hard bottom?
Yeah.
Obviously not.
Obvious. Is it fair to say that you don't call something the hard bottom or the rock bottom until it is the last of the bottoms?
Right.
That's the last one.
Right.
So
If there is a last.
Oh, it's not inevitable that there'll be a last one.
Not at all.
The risks are great.
I don't know. Every bottom has a trapdoor.
Every bottom has a trapdoor.
And you're welcome to step through it anytime you want.
The power of that, which means you hold that loaded gun even right now.
Absolutely. Every day.
You can turn the knob on that door, the trapdoor, anytime you want.
Anytime I want.
Wow. I hope our listeners are hearing that. That's powerful. It means that although addiction is a disease and an illness, it is one that involves choice also. What a paradox that is.
To a point.
Yeah.
There's a choice. At some point, the choice is taken away from you.
Yeah.
And you no longer have the choice until you come out the other end.
Wow. Wow.
There's always a choice which way you want to go.
What a powerful moment. I hope that whoever's listening right now realizes what an important insight that is for us all. That is a hugely important insight. And it might be a new thought for a lot of us. It's a new thought. All right, so there's a lot more to the story, so we'll continue. Did you have any children from that first marriage?
Yes.
You did.
A daughter.
A daughter. So how long did the marriage last after this bottom that you're talking about?
Not long.
Not long.
No, because I had other things on my mind.
Wow.
There was another woman.
Yeah.
At that point.
Wow. So how bad was the divorce process?
Pretty rough.
Pretty rough.
That was a rough one. It got pretty nasty.
Oh dear.
It got pretty nasty.
Wow. Wow. So then, what does rebuilding your life from that point look like?
Well, I mean, when the whole thing came apart and I lost the company and there were the bankruptcies and all that stuff, I ended up in detox up at St. Peter's Hospital.
Wow.
Where you look out the window of the day room and there's a bar.
Oh, of the detox center.
Yeah, that was always the funny joke. There's a bar right across the street. It's gone now, but and I came out of that and I stopped drinking again. And that was my first foray into the rooms of AA was at that time. And it was rough. I remember it being just absolute hell on earth.
Why? Why do you say that?
Because I didn't understand. I had no idea of what I was dealing with. And I was angry, and I was defiant, and I didn't listen, and it didn't work.
You got a sponsor at that time. What kind?
No.
You did not have a sponsor.
No.
So it's important for folks to realize too, while the 12 steps do provide a structure, it's all done by attraction, not by force.
Correct.
You get to participate in the program as much or as little as you're willing.
Exactly.
Which sounds like a flaw to the program, but is the way it works. It must work that way.
Right.
Wow. So that episode with the 12 steps lasted about how long?
About 3 or 4 months.
3 or 4 months.
So maybe longer. I don't really remember. Because I pulled a geographical.
What does that mean?
I left this area. I left the Coxsackie, Athens area, and moved to Washington, D.C. to take a new job, working for my competition.
Wow. Did it feel like a fresh start? Were you filled with optimism?
No, I don't remember it. I was still very angry. And I started drinking again. But nobody knew it. Now I was hiding it.
Were you remarried yet by this point?
No.
No.
My second wife got pregnant.
Okay.
With my first son. And we got married shortly thereafter.
Wow. How long did the Washington chapter last?
Couple years. My second wife got a job offer back up this way. and I was ready to go. I didn't like my job because I wasn't in charge. I wasn't the boss. It was all about control. It was all about me. It was all about my ideas. You know, I'd done such a great job prior to that. Why wouldn't you listen to me? You know, but that's what it was all ego. Now I had no idea that's what it was at the time. But
No. Yeah. Wow. So what did the next chapter look like?
we came back up here. I was continuing to drink on the QT. And at some point, it kind of came back into, because my second wife was also a drinker. And at some point, I don't really remember when, but at some point I started drinking. It was okay that people saw me drinking.
The slate had been cleaned enough.
Yeah.
In some way.
Yeah.
When did that drinking become a problem?
Probably immediately, but I was controlling it. No, I wasn't controlling it, but in my own mind, I was. At that point,
the illusion that we have control over
the illusion, right? And I was working every day. I was, making a living. I was making money, and work hard, play hard. No big deal.
At that time, was there anybody saying, "I'm concerned"?
Not that I remember.
Not really. Yeah, and you didn't feel like your kids were receiving any detrimental effects from this. Everything was going just fine enough.
Yeah, everything was,
When did that stop?
At some point, after I picked up after that, going to Washington, or shortly before that, that binge, as I call it, or that drinking episode lasted another 15 years.
Yeah.
And it at some point towards the end of that period, I began to lose control. I could no longer work hard and play hard. I played hard and I worked hard at the same time. It got to that point where, the bottle had me. I needed it to start my day and work through my day and finish my day.
I think that's another important moment. The bottle had me. And I think a lot of us might, if we're not subject to alcohol addiction, we might say, "Oh, the poor guy, the bottle had you." That's kind of a classic form of addiction, but there's so many other forms. Sure. So for me, a lot of our listeners know that I'm a recovering food addict. The food had me. Cinnamon Toast Crunch had me. Or honey roasted peanuts had me. For others, it is excessive time on the internet has them. Shopping has them. Some drug has them. There are so many different ways that we could be owned by what seems like a substance that doesn't have any power on its own. And yet, we have to admit that we're powerless over those things. We're powerless over them.
Correct.
So the bottle had you. How long could you keep that up?
Until I couldn't.
Until you couldn't.
Until there was another bottom.
What was that other bottom?
It was, I remember that.
Oh.
It was it happened over a period of months, 3 or 4 months. I was very angry. I was pushing back at I was working for somebody, and he wasn't doing it the way I wanted to. I remember standing in front of him screaming and yelling. It was about time people started showing me some respect. And then there was a big party, and I just went nuts for 2 days, 2 or 3 days. Yeah, and I woke up. I don't know whether it was a Monday or a Tuesday. Couldn't go to work. I was so sick. And I reached out to a friend of mine in the rooms.
What were the consequences for that?
There really weren't any. I didn't lose my job. the consequences, there were no physical consequences.
Yeah.
Like I didn't lose my job, or my wife didn't leave me. My kids didn't hate me. It was just absolute disgust. It was all me. It was remorse. It was how could you act like that? Everybody else pretty much gave me a ride.
Wow. You got a pass from a lot of people for that.
I sure did.
But that didn't last. They didn't get, how long did they give you a pass?
Well, I quit drinking. I stopped drinking.
That caused you to stop?
Almost immediately. Yeah, that day that
wow. How many years ago might we be talking?
Probably 10.
10 years ago. So for the better part of the past 10 years, you were a non-drinker.
Yeah, kind of.
You had to sneak a little bit.
Well, I gave up drink after that episode. I went into the rooms and full speed ahead. Damn the torpedo! I'm gonna get it right this time.
White knuckling it and doing it.
Well, yeah. Got a sponsor right away. Started making coffee at meetings.
How many meetings would you go to a week?
7.
Every day.
Every day.
Wow.
Really wanted to get the program. That's where I always say that, and this is not my words, these are colloquialisms that are common in the rooms, is that, God brought me to the rooms, and the rooms brought me to God. So that whole evolution started at that time.
God brought me to the rooms, and the rooms meaning the places where those meetings happen, wherever they are.
AA.
God brought me to AA, and AA brought me to God.
Yeah. Yeah. Happens for a lot.
Yeah.
And that was, that was good. Except I still didn't get it.
How do you mean?
I didn't give up control.
You gave up drinking, but not control. Right. Why is having control a problem? For a lot of our listeners, they're like, of course you didn't want to give up control. That's not a good thing.
Because giving up control is the absolute definition of powerlessness. It's to me, my alcoholism, my addiction, the addiction was a symptom of a much larger problem. What we call character defects. And, there's a reason, what do they call them, the 7 deadly sins? Those are the character defects.
But we can't overcome those, can we?
Yes. Well, I don't know if you overcome them, but you understand them. You see them for what they are. And because you can see how pride and ego and those kind of things, how they manifest in your day-to-day life, you can catch it. And you can go, there it is again.
Do you wind up talking about some of those things when you go to the AA meetings?
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
That feels like an important part of the sharing is there's a real humility when you go to those meetings.
Yeah.
People share things that they're not proud of.
Yes, absolutely. If you want.
Yeah. You can also, right, because you spent years in the program where you weren't using it to its potential.
No, not at all. I was a grocery store alcoholic as far as the 12 steps went. I'll take 1, 2, and 3. 4, 5, and 6. No. I don't really need to go there.
Because 4, 5, and 6, 1, 2, and 3 are I'm letting this program help me with my problem. Right. 4, 5, and 6 are now I'm going to turn the focus on myself.
Those are the action steps, the ones that require work.
You have to take a fearless inventory of what you've done. Right. You have to be sorry for them and try to make amends for these.
You've got to identify them. Mm. You've got to confess them, and you have to say you're sorry for them.
Powerful.
And that was my mistake, is I didn't think I had any character defects. I just thought that drinking was my problem.
What stops you from giving up on this work when it's hard? I would think there's got to be days you just do not want to talk about drinking or your character defects.
Oh, absolutely. No doubt. And there are many days when I don't talk about them. There's no day that I don't think about drinking. But once you understand what your character defects are and you've worked through the process and you can identify them and know how they cause you to react to certain situations, then you can deal with them. But you have to know, and there's the fearless moral inventory. Is to understand what your defects are. And until you do that, you won't. You are at serious risk. You're at serious risk. So, that's a huge part of it.
One of the things I think that people who love someone in addiction, those people who are in the story, they themselves might not have a problem with alcohol, but they are married to someone who does. They can become very discouraged by the fact that every bottom still has a trap door, as you said.
Right.
And there's two things I think that are worth talking about. One of them is probably not in the focus of what we're talking about today, but probably will be a future episode, is to talk about codependency. That when there is addiction in one person in the family, everybody's affected. Nobody's unaffected by it. And most people, because they have their own character defects, play into it in ways they would like to be they'd like to say, I had nothing to do with that, that's all his problem, or that's all her problem. But that's also never true, because we all are part of the web of this and perpetuate it. But I don't think that's a good topic for today. I think what might be better for us to focus on is, it's a little bit of a heartbreaking story, but there was a trap door in that bottom that you talked about.
Oh, yeah.
And that's a hard one, and I think that's generous of you, because you, during this time, you're doing everything right, so to speak. You've got, you're going to meetings, you're a man of faith, and you're going to church, you're involved in church, you're a good dad, you're a connected husband, you've got all, you're a very functioning member of society. But how long ago was it that took a vacation?
4 years ago. Well, it never went on vacation. It was always there.
It was always there.
The character defects were always there, but because I didn't understand what they were, I didn't think I had them. But everybody else around me did. And I thought everything was going along fine. I was doing a great job. I was the fixer, and everything was fine. And then one day, my second wife looked at me and said, "I'm all done. I'm out of here."
Whoa.
And my immediate response to that was, "Don't let the doorknob hit you in the ass on the way out." And we actually continued to live together for about 6 or 7 months, separate rooms, And it was a very good relationship because all the pressure was off. But it deteriorated, and eventually she bought a house, and I came home one day and all the furniture was gone.
Wow.
And I was like, fine, that's just fine, no problem. Wow. And I spent a lot of time by myself, which is okay because I like to be by myself. Except my mind wasn't in a very good place, because I lost.
Oh.
I didn't win this one. I lost. And at that point in time, I started doing a lot. I was praying a lot, and I was asking for, just what went wrong? What went wrong? I mean, how dare she? How dare she give up on me? why would she do that? Well, what's going on here? And I prayed heavy on it, and I ran into, somehow I ended up on some website that, and I can't really remember what it was, but, I think it was a website about how to get your wife back or something like that. And I started reading it, and it was like telling my story. I prayed to God, tell me, God, show me what is it about me that made her give up on me. And I think it's funny, I think at that point God had about enough. So he said, okay, you ready? And like I said, I found this website and I started reading it, and I was like, oh my God, that's me. That's what I was doing. And God, through that website, let me know exactly what my character defects were.
Wow.
Let me know exactly how to understand them, and exactly what they caused me to do to other people. And it was the most devastating epiphany I've ever had in my life.
Is it fair to say that it came at the right time? You could have looked at that website at another time earlier in the journey and it wouldn't have resonated.
Probably not. I don't know that. But yeah, sure, it came at the right time. It came at the right time. It was so devastating that it was borderline debilitating. And it just consumed me. And there's only one way to shut the noise off in my head. There was only one, and I knew it was wrong, and I knew it was the wrong way to go, but I had to do something. I wasn't sleeping, I wasn't eating, I was just an emotional mess. And I had to do something. So I picked up a bottle of booze. And it worked.
It numbed the feelings.
It shut me down. Yeah. And I lasted about a month before I was just a mess. Drinking 20, what I call shift drinking.
What does that mean?
You drink until you pass out. You wake up, you drink until you pass out. You wake up, you drink until you pass out. Yeah. That lasted about 4 days, as I remember.
Wow.
Completely off the grid.
Yeah. Were people in your life noticing, worried?
No. I was, it was just me and just me.
Yeah.
I had stopped going to meetings, the whole thing. But there were people that were reaching out to me, and I was ignoring them. People in the room. And they knew something was wrong. And eventually I answered the phone.
Wow.
And, that was 4 or 5 years ago.
What did recovery from that period look like?
It was tough. It was really hard.
Tougher than the others?
Oh yeah.
Why?
Because I had an understanding of why. Now I knew why. It wasn't the booze, it was the character defects. All the booze was ways to shut down my mind.
So somebody else would have substituted the booze with something else.
Right.
For their defects.
Sure.
Got it.
I mean, you can use whatever you want, anything that will distract you. And none of them are good, whether it's booze or drugs or gambling or shopping or food or whatever it is.
There it is.
It can be anything. And that's me. That's not necessarily somebody else, but that's me.
Yeah.
So yeah, this last time was pretty rough. I was pretty angry, dude.
How long was it really hard after this last episode?
Probably a year. It took me a year to work my way through, because at that point, because I understood why I was like I was, I realized how it affected everybody around me. And it was just talk about remorse. Oh my God. I wanted to die. I kept praying to God, just take me. Just let's, you know. Did I contemplate suicide? Absolutely. Did I have the guts to pull it off? Absolutely not.
Thank you, God, for that.
You know, how could I remember, you know, how can I let my children remember me that way? You know, whatever. But, you know, certainly, you know, the drunk in me was like, well, isn't there an easy way out of this? No. And there was, you know, 3 people that were very integral in bringing me to the realization of what was going on. And they stood right by me, no matter how angry and how, you know, how ugly I, you know.
All of them were part of AA?
No.
They weren't?
No. One
was part of AA?
Yeah. 1 in AA and 2 in the church.
1 in AA and 2 in the church.
Now 1 in AA, but there were others in
Sure.
the, you know.
Sure. But one comes to mind immediately as the real beacon in
Right.
AA.
In AA.
Was that your sponsor?
Yeah.
So your sponsor did the job of a sponsor, and then some others in your church filled in a way that was really...
They reinforced him, even though they had no idea what they were doing.
Praise.
I mean, they knew what they were doing, but they had no idea. You know, the 3 were not communicating.
This is where the term higher power might be powerful.
Oh.
Right? Because your higher power was organizing things to help you.
Right. I mean, it... yeah, and I look back on it and I go, oh, God, so clearly, you know, the higher power. You know, 2 of the people I'd known for years. I'd known for years. And all of a sudden, what they were saying made sense. You know, and they weren't nice about it. You know, I mean, well, you know, me picking up the phone and just bawling, just, you know, just feeling sorry for myself, and what am I going to do, and how do I deal with this, and walking into the, you know, one of their offices and just completely blowing up his whatever he was doing. You know, I remember walking into his office, and him looking up at me going, how are things going? And I went, I just dropped my head. And he was like, okay, sit down. Completely. And I remember that specific conversation. And he said, you got to stop living in the past, man, and stop worrying about the future. And you got to start living in the moment. Just for today. Just for today. All those years I had heard that slogan. Take it one day at a time.
Right.
And had absolutely no idea what it meant until that moment in time. That's God.
Amen.
And that was the beginning. That was like, how do I do that? And he looked at me and he said, you're a smart man, you'll figure it out. And I did. But that wasn't the end of it, because I still had all kinds of stuff going on. And I remember another specific conversation with a gentleman where I explained to him that, of course, I had to have an ego. How could I not have an ego? I mean, ego is what keeps me going. How can I not have pride? If I'm going to do a good job, I have to have pride. And he laughed at me. He laughed at me.
He's pointing at me for the listeners.
And that was a turning point. Those were two big turning points. Deacon Mike saying, you got to learn to live in the moment. And you, after I had expounded on how I had to have an ego, laughed at me.
They don't teach you that in seminary. I guess I just did it.
And I got to tell you, it really pissed me off. But then you went on to explain exactly where the disconnect was in my thinking.
Wow.
And that was a turning point.
Wow.
And then the other turning point was with my sponsor. And for months, he pounded into me Acceptance. See, I'd never accepted before that I was an alcoholic. Yeah, I'm an alcoholic. So what?
Yeah.
I never accepted the fact. Or anything else for that matter. My wife left me. Accept it. Acceptance was huge. So those are the 3 things that brought me where I am today.
Wow.
Acceptance, living in the moment just for today, and get rid of your ego as best that you can.
So this
Understand what it is and how it is not your friend. Right. Your words, not mine.
Yeah. Right. And so let's take a second with that for our listeners. Those are 3 huge things. Acceptance of what is, living just in this day, not in yesterday, not in tomorrow, just for today, just one day at a time. And to recognize that our ego wants different things than our soul wants. And that our ego must serve our soul. Our ego wants what it wants, and it is not always our friend. So that's huge. Those are huge things. And I'm grateful. Thank you for sharing that I was a big part of that. I'm really amazed by that.
I got to tell you a story. The first time we ever met, I stopped into the rectory. You were upstairs eating your lunch, and I came into the rectory, and Mike was here, and I think Bob was here. And I said, "Hey, how you doing, guys? Hey, what's going on? Not much." So is the new priest around? And they said, "Yeah, he's upstairs eating lunch." I said, "No, I'll go get him." Mike goes, "Oh, no, I'll go get him." And you came downstairs, and we shook hands, and our eyes met, and the hair on the back of my neck stood up.
Wow.
And I was like, Then we had our little whatever conversation we had. And I walked out of the rectory that day. And I said to myself, that was weird. What the hell was that? And now I know.
We were going to play a big role in each other's lives, but we didn't. Yeah.
That's God.
Yeah, that's God.
That's God. I truly believe that God put you 3 people in my path for a reason.
How wonderful.
How else would it have happened?
How wonderful.
Just a funny little aside there.
It's a wonderful aside, and I'm grateful for it. Oh, my. Thank you for that. I'm curious, now in these past, you said it's been about 4 years since the last struggle.
Yeah, I don't count days.
You don't count days?
No, I live in the day.
So talk to me about living in the day. What makes today, this time in your life, joyful? And what's hard about these days? And I'm not speaking about things going on in the news. Of course, we're living through COVID-19. We're living through aging. We're living through lots of things. But how about in terms of just your living? Where are your joys? Where are the roses and where are the thorns in your life at this point?
The joy is that I understand it all. At least as best as I can. Mm-hmm. Believe me, I don't purport to understand it completely.
But you understand enough.
I understand enough. And I can see when I'm coming off the rails. I can catch myself because now I understand. And that's a joy. A joy is that no matter how broken I thought I was, I wasn't. And that I still can love and still be loved. And that's huge. That's huge. And I'm just glad that I understand that, and today I'm sober and I don't need a drink.
Yeah.
Are there times when I want to drink? Absolutely. I think about it every day.
What do you do when those thoughts come in your mind?
I laugh. Years ago, I always kept the chip in my back pocket that someday I could drink again. And after this period of time, I no longer have that in my back pocket because I know it's not possible. I have reached total acceptance of my situation. And I accept it for what it is. Oh, there's another bottom there for me. And it's got a trap door in it if I want it. Am I willing to pay the consequence? Not today, I'm not.
Not today. Not today.
Not today.
I've heard people speak this way about recovery when alcohol is the struggle. Is if you were to say right now, never again at your children's weddings will you toast. Never, not on New Year's, not at any event. You will never again. That would be too overwhelming. That doesn't help anybody to think in those grand terms. And nobody can promise that. You say, I don't know about what's going on in the future, but for today. And then tomorrow, it'll be today again. So today, so as long as you stay in today, you can be happy and healthy and to the best of your ability and accepting.
Yes. You know, the thorns in my side right now is there's nothing so bad out there that's really, you know, yeah, I'm really tired of working.
Yeah.
I'm really tired of it.
Yeah.
I've been working a long time.
How old are you now?
62.
62. And you would love to take a break from this work.
Yeah, I could stop working right now.
Yeah.
If I wanted to.
Yeah.
And I've known that for a year. But here I am still working. Can't really wrap my head around that one. I could walk away anytime, but I haven't. But working is, you know, but that's, you know, it's life. I mean, you know, and part of the not liking the work is probably because I'm not the boss. And that my boss actually questions me sometimes. How dare you? Who do you think you're talking to? See, I still have that.
Sure.
I still have that. And it makes me angry when he questions something that I've done. But then I know, and I get angry. And sometimes I lash out. And I pull back. And I go, there it is. There it is.
There it is.
She's still there.
Sure.
You know.
We are who we are.
Yeah. And I've asked God to take all. Like, you know, I've given them up. Please take all my defects. I just haven't quite figured that one out yet because they're still here. Or maybe he takes them for a period of time, but I'm always able to take them back if I want.
Sure. Almost like a grudge. Like sometimes I think we can have a resentment or a grudge lifted a little bit or get a little fuzzy, and we can choose to bring it back into focus.
Oh, sure.
Easily, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So if there's an ex who's hurt us, and we're starting to not think about it as much, or it's starting to get a little fuzzier, well, I'm sure there was wrong on both sides. But if we want to, we could focus right in and go, oh, I remember what she did. I remember what he did.
I do it. I have, you know, big part of recovery is giving up resentments.
Yeah.
Because a resentment is wanting to, you know, well, it's hard to explain, but it's like, resentments aren't good because whatever resentment you have runs space in your head, and the other person has no idea.
It punishes you, not them.
Yeah.
Resenting someone else doesn't affect them at all.
No, it doesn't affect them at all. But I still have them, and I bring them out every now and then, and I dust them off, and I see how they're doing.
Yeah.
And I have moments of anger and of feelings of revenge, wanting to get revenge. It's all still there.
Yeah.
It's just it doesn't control me anymore. I've accepted the fact that they're there, and that there are consequences should I allow them to run my life.
You know what I think is interesting is in this time, as we're recording this, we're in the midst of COVID-19. And it's affecting us very seriously, very negatively. And I'm noticing that one of the opportunities for us right now, spiritually, is to recognize that there's no one to blame. The entire world is going through this simultaneously. But I'm noticing that some people are so unfamiliar with that territory that they would feel better if they had someone to blame. So they're mad at the Chinese, or they're mad at the government, or they're mad at however the approach is being taken with the lockdown. And I understand that some of those things are rooted in real concerns, but we are given an opportunity to not have a resentment right now because no one did this to us. The pandemics have always existed.
Yeah.
It's part of being human. Right. But part of not accepting that, like you said, acceptance is so big. part of non-acceptance is saying, this shouldn't be happening and someone's gonna pay.
Absolutely.
And it's so tempting.
Right. And it's not going to be me.
And it won't be me.
Oh, yes, it will.
Yeah. It's always gonna be you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. A resentment is like taking poison and expecting it to kill the other person. Oops.
If I drink this poison, the other person will get sick. No. That's not how poison works.
No. If you had a life like mine, you'd drink too. See, I got them all.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
One of the things that a lot of people are talking about right now is that people's relationship with alcohol is changing in quarantine. A lot of us we're working from home. Not everybody can. You work in an essential need in water treatment, and so it's very important that you're at work. You're protecting all of us. But a lot of us are doing our work from home, myself included most of the time, and we're on Zoom calls, and we're doing that. One of the things that's been noticed by a lot of people is that it's 5 o'clock somewhere attitude is really creeping in to a lot of people's lives that didn't used to have it. Day drinking is becoming a thing, making jokes, making light of the fact that we're cracking open a beer while we're at work. Now, not all of those people are alcoholics, perhaps, but it's been noticed. I've heard rising talk and concern on podcasts and news shows about, is our relationship as a culture with alcohol in a dangerous place right now because of both COVID-19 is making us want to numb a little bit. Everybody would like to take the edge off a little bit. Whether you are isolated and you want the edge off of your loneliness, or if you're trapped with your family and you want the edge off the resentments that are, bumping up against each other. As somebody who is in recovery from alcoholism, what are your thoughts about that? Are there warnings that you want to issue? Are there thoughts you want to share with people who might be listening, who they're listening not because they have a problem, but because this is interesting to them, or but maybe there's something we need to think about in our relationship with alcohol?
No. It's not my place.
Ooh! There's an example of ego not running the show at all.
No, it's not my place. It's not. There's only one person that can diagnose whether somebody has an addiction issue, and that's the person.
The person themselves.
No doctor, no therapist, no priest, nobody. It's got to start with the individual. Drink all you want; they'll make more. Careful what you ask for.
I think this is a very interesting moment to pause and just say what it looks like to see work being put into action. So you've done a lot of work on accepting, on letting go of ego, on letting go of pride. And right now you have an opportunity to speak with authority on an issue, and you're not taking it. I think that's just a powerful moment to celebrate. That a lot of us think, even if we're not invited to get on a soapbox, we might as well just do it and get a megaphone. But there is great wisdom in saying, I'm not sure if I have anything of value to add to that. That's powerful. I have a couple of questions that I like to ask everybody that I'm talking with, and you can just respond from your gut. We're just going into these issues together. First question is, a lot of people say everything happens for a reason. They look back over their life and they say, that happened for a reason, that happened for a reason. Are you a believer that everything happens for a reason?
To some degree. I believe less in coincidences than I used to. Just because of the path. Just because of the experience I had. That certain things happen for certain reasons. Did it rain today? For a reason? Yeah, because the weather's the weather. You have to see it to understand it. And it's not always visible. Certain things happen for a reason, but not everything.
Powerful. Okay, that's got a lot of us, I'm sure, thinking about our own lives, and that's cool. Tell me, you've endured a lot. You've had to persevere through a lot of stuff. What, in your experience, is the key to enduring? A lot of people are having to endure right now in ways they never thought they would. What do you think is the key to endurance?
Acceptance. I really believe that it's that simple.
What does acceptance mean right now? What does it mean? Can you put words to it if somebody goes, yeah, but. How do you answer the yeah, but with acceptance? Yeah, but I can't accept this.
Well, what choice do you have? You don't control this. I don't control anything. It's, I can control what time I get up in the morning, and I can control, what time I brush my teeth. But something of this magnitude, it comes back to who do you want to blame? Are there people out there that have some responsibility in this whole thing? Absolutely. Did they do it on purpose? That remains to be seen. Is it going to change anything today? No.
Sounds like another part of that is it'll be a lot harder to endure if you're going to focus on your resentments.
Absolutely.
If you're going to take some time to focus on the resentments, you're not going to endure well. It's exhausting.
You can make this easy or you can make it hard.
Yeah.
That's your choice.
But this is what it is.
Yeah. Whether you take it hard or take it easy isn't going to change it one way or another. We are where we are because that's where we are. This is what's going on. Do your best where you are with what you have.
So, where we are right now is where we are. Where we will be, we don't know. But what are your hopes? What are your best hopes for what life could be like after coronavirus? What are your hopes?
We live in a very divided age. The divisiveness is just huge. And then something like this happens, and you see a crack in the armor. All of a sudden, people are a little more willing. People are a little more understanding. If anything comes out of this, and we hear it all the time, we're all in this together. Yeah, we sure are. And therein lies our strength. So I would hope to see people be able to understand that maybe we're all in this together.
So I would love for our listeners to take a moment and just savor this conversation, because that's one of the gifts that we've been given through this coronavirus is a little more time to put around the moments of our lives. So let's just take a moment and right here in this moment, consider what is the crack in your armor that has been caused by this? And what do you want to come through that crack? What are you willing to let in? Seth today talked about acceptance being the key. What is something you've been unwilling to accept about coronavirus, about a relationship in your life, about a situation that you've had? Is there something that goes back to your childhood that you resent? Have you been tempted to use the phrase, well, if you had the life I had, you also would fill in the blank? Is there an opportunity to maybe loosen the grip on that a little bit and accept that whatever is, however it was, that's how it was? When we talked about resentments, somebody might have popped in your head. There's a good chance someone flashed in your head. Is there a chance that your resentment of that person is not affecting him or her in the least, and that you are being crippled by it? What could you do today to move in the direction of letting that go? Seth Mann, you've given us a great gift today. Thank you for taking the time to speak. And for those of us who know about the 12 steps, we know that the 12th step is to bring this message to everyone who's suffering. And you reached a lot of people today with your humility. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you.
In listening to this conversation, you may feel that this message was sent right to you for a reason. If you have come to, in some sense, think that alcohol or some other substance might have taken over your life, if you think you have a problem and would like to get some help, Seth personally would like to have a conversation with you. He asked me to share with you the rectory phone number so that we could connect you to him personally to chat about what it is that the beginning of this journey can look like for you. Our phone number is country code 1-518-731-8800. That's 518-731-8800. And when you call, you can choose my extension, extension 5, and I will personally connect you to Seth Mann. Please leave us your name and phone number and what time zone you're in, and we'll be happy to give you a call as soon as Seth is able. Let us conclude by saying the prayer that unites all of us who are in recovery from an addiction, a prayer that is so powerful it can be used every day and in virtually every situation. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. God bless you.